Well, then what do you have a problem with on the last portion of of your position? Letting it ride, letting it let
Yeah, yeah,
Do you have points you project out in the future that where it might get to?
sometimes.
Well, they
And I
can't be
feel bad when
sometimes.
it gets there.
Well, what do you mean to feel bad?
Well, it's like, the other day, I was like, damn it, I knew it was going up. I knew it was gonna go to 19. All I had to do was just sit on my hands. And
With
not-
part of your position, you've already got most of it off?
Generally, yeah.
No, well, not generally. I mean, that's the
Yes.
whole point. You've
I
got
have a small
to you've
piece
got to
of it.
have a regimen where you've already booked a substantial amount of profits from the move.
Right,
You've got a small portion left.
Yes.
That small portion should be virtually meaningless. Meaningless. Now think about it. You've already booked a bunch of profit. There's no possible way you can lose on the trade, even if it comes all the way back to your entry point, because at that point you just scratch it, right?
Right.
Okay. So where's the significance here?
I guess in what goes through my mind is,
You don't have to answer it now. That's a question you can ask yourself.
Okay.
Why it can't be completely a risk-free opportunity for you? Because you can project your point out to the future. I mean, project your point to where you think it might go. If it either gets there or not, it gets close to there, you can get on anywhere you want. And the other thing too, if your point that you're projecting it to as a possibility of it getting there, if it gets there and starts to back off, but it looks like it might blow through it, and you've gotten out, you can always get back in
Yeah.
as a breakout trade, right?
yeah,
Okay. Wait for it to break out and confirm.
yeah. Wait for it to pull back a little and buy it back at the end of the day.
Exactly. That's what I used to do years ago when I first moved to Chicago and I was trading silver a lot. When I would ride a move up to a significant reference point and get out close to the top. You know, book all the move on the last portion of my position, and then if it was something like this, you know, like I had, and you know, I had a significant reference point. Let's say on a daily chart, the market's coming up here, and I'm going to go over this again in a little bit. But basically, what I said to myself and the clients that I had, you know, also in silver trades, is that, you know, if I got in somewhere down in here, I don't know if the market's going to get through this resistance or not. But what I do know is that if it does, it could be significant and keep on going. So basically, what am I risking to find out if it gets through there? In other words, people want to be on for the big move. They want to be on for the big ride, okay, as big as they can get. Now, I've already got most of my position off anyway. So what I did is that I just always took my position off close to this high right here, and then had added it back on as a buy stop up here. So if it went, so what I was basically risking, I was risking not getting the opportunity to book that much profit and saving myself, or booking that much profit just to find out if it was going to break through. In other words, this is what I'd be risking to find out if it was going to break through. I didn't want to risk all that. So I would forego the possibility of getting this much profit if it did go through and I hung on, as opposed to getting out and taking my profits and reinitiate the position right up here.
Alternatively, many times they pull back and then they go again, especially like towards the end of the day.
Yeah, well, it depends, you know, it depends on your methodology and how much you need to, in other words, you say it goes through, it pulls back a little bit, and then does this, okay? Well, you know, that's just a function of how much you need to risk to be into this trade.
Okay.
You know, once it breaks through, how far are you going to let it go back, you know, back past this line to tell you that it's possibly not going to work? That's all that is. And there are a lot of different breakout methods that'll tell you exactly how much you need to, you know, how much you need to risk in these cases. And it depends on the time frame you're doing it anyway. You know, 2-minute chart's going to be a lot different than if that were a daily chart or even an hourly chart. Okay, the part that I'm just going to briefly go over this because I've already really covered a lot of it, except for a couple of points that I want to make. And that's on page 6 of section 5, the practical philosophy for change. Remember we've talked about how we're in a universe that is constantly expanding? And if that universe is conscious, I mean, we're conscious. There might be certainly other aspects of the universe that's conscious. There might be a consciousness at, let's say, the macro level. And if that universe is conscious, it would seem as if that universe has a desire, this universe has a desire to expand. It is doing so, definitely. And we are expanding. We are evolving. Animals evolve. Insects evolve. Plants evolve. Even the earth evolves. So if you just kind of look at this from a practical perspective, what do we got? We got a universe that's constantly expanding. We got a universe that seems to, if you know, this might be making a huge leap in terms of an inference, but I'm going to say a universe that even desires to expand. We exist at the micro level. We're a part of this universe. And it would seem to me like if we are in harmony with it, our lives would be infinitely easier, simpler. And if you look at the evidence of that, there's an abundance of evidence to suggest that what we need to do is continually expand. And why do I know that? Why? Look at the emotion of excitement. What gets us excited? Come on, what gets us excited? What?
Learning.
Learning gets us excited. What does learning imply?
Change.
Expansion.
Growing.
A mind once expanded can't go back to its original form. A mind once expanded cannot go back to its original form. You can't be who you once were once you've expanded yourself. Learning excites us. Starting a new project excites us. Starting a new job, unless we're dreading it for some reason, we're acting out of desperation, excites us. There's some powerful implications here in relationship to a kind of life philosophy. If all these things excite us and create a sense of satisfaction and happiness, then not doing it would imply what? Not expanding, not learning. Would imply what? That we ain't going to feel so good. It's called depression, hopelessness, feeling sorry for ourselves, stress, anxiety. What is stress? Simply our beliefs, our inflexible beliefs in relationship to an environment that is changing, and we refuse to acknowledge the changes. Right? Environmental forces that are in conflict with our beliefs, and we are refusing to be adaptable to the extent that we are feeling stress. Now, at the same time, look at it like this. We have one external source of information. I say one, meaning all the forces in the universe that exist outside of ourselves is an external force generating information about its nature and characteristics. But we have three internal sources of information. And if you look at it from one perspective, it would seem like if we're in a universe that's constantly expanding, where every moment is truly unique because atoms and molecules are in motion, and as a result of being in motion, they're in a constant state of change, making what's really out there constantly changing. But at the same time, everything we experience and record in our mental environment as a memory remains static, and the beliefs that we acquire as a result of these concepts that we end up formulating about the nature or how we describe the nature of the way things exist, if they remain static, it would seem as if, and to be happy requires being adaptable and adapting and expanding, it would seem like the universe has played a cruel hoax on us. Right? Except for what? Is there a compensating factor? Is there something that assures us that we can change and adapt? our ability to think. Remember, our willingness to think. It all boils down to our willingness to think. Our willingness to think, the thinking process is not bounded by any constraints whatsoever. It's only our lack of willingness that keeps us from asking a question. You can ask a question about anything. If the question's honest and sincere, you will get an answer. I thoroughly, 100%, unequivocally believe, ask and ye shall receive.
So all the answers are out there, it's a matter of opening yourself up.
That's right.
Right?
All the answers are out there, whether they get dumped in your brain, as inspiration, or whether, you find yourself opening a book or turning on the TV, some synchronistic thing, or overhear a conversation. As long as you are open, I guarantee you, you will get an answer.
Well, I think too, things come into our life when we're ready to learn them too, right?
That's the sincere openness. Okay? That's just another way of saying I am sincerely open. Because this part see, we've got what relates to this would be, let's see how we got that set up. Yeah, we've got beliefs and memories. See, at these two levels right here, we have beliefs and memories and associations. Well, I don't have to write it down. Beliefs, memories, and associations, which can all remain static. But we also have, and the way scientists also relate to this is left and right brain. This could be left brain stuff that's rational. Everything that's rational has to do with something that already happened. A rational thinking process is a process bounded by our past. But creativity definitely exists. And by definition, it means bringing forth something
be used to trust the intuitive level more, meaning you may enter the trade based on some intuitive idea, but yet you're rigid enough to know that you'd employ money management and all objective parts into that idea.
Absolutely.
So that could be a way for you to trust that intuitive aha.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's a good point,
Could
too.
you repeat that? I kind of got it.
What I was basically getting at, I just basically had just occurred to me when we were talking about this. There's many times, and I think it probably more center related to it as to when I'm trading. There'll be many times where I'll see an opportunity, but it doesn't meet the traditional objective criteria used for it. And
Right.
as a result, I can't justify it, and therefore I don't take the trade. I was just thinking to myself, if there's a way for me to take the trade based on that impulse, that intuitive impulse, reinforce with the concept that once I'm in the trade, I use all the traditional measures I used from trading objectively day to day anyways, meaning money management rules. How can I get burned any worse than if I'd taken a trade based on purely objective measures? It would give me validly take that trade, provided I immediately kicked into gear with all the other measures I use on a day-to-day basis, which keep me out of trouble every day.
Which is exactly what you need to do, which is exactly what we're going to cover anyway. When you said we're getting ahead of ourselves, you're kind of right, because that's how you counteract euphoria. You could be in a completely euphoric state of mind, and in essence, riskless, but yet you'd still have to have a mental mechanism, a monitoring mechanism, for you to notice that you're breaking your rules.
The piece that I'm not obviously at yet, I've made the connection, I think. What I think I would need to work on is getting myself now to put the trade on, understanding full well that the other rules will fall into place right after. I've never made the connection up to this point, and I still don't know if that's going to be the solution at this point in time.
It probably will. All you gotta do is say, how much have I gotta risk to find out?
Right.
If you're willing to accept the risk, then you'll take the trade.
And wouldn't part of it just be doing it, and then if it's working, it's something that you can trust, and if it's not working, then you know that it isn't working, and not to take those trades in the future?
Well, see, it depends. See, the problem is this is the kind of thing we have to watch out for when we start mixing levels of development. In other words, you know, what we want to do right now is just stay focused in our own level of development, whatever that is. If I've got to trade mechanically because there are certain skills that I need to acquire, like learning how to think in probability, carefree state of mind, objectivity, if I don't have all those things, you know, at a functional level in my mental environment, then we shouldn't even be having this discussion. It's irrelevant. It really is. Because like I said before, you can get intuitive impulses, and I'm saying notice them, write them down, don't act on them. Don't act on them until you've got all these other skills in place, firmly in place. And there are ways to know that you do. We're going to go over that in a minute. So there is some, you know, it can create confusion about, you know, what stage of development you're in and what you need to do as a result of that stage of development. I'm going to dispel that confusion right now, hopefully. But, you know, just the important thing is to stay focused on where you're at and where you need to be. Because look at it this way. What he will find out, hopefully to answer your question, Jeff, what Dave would find out by taking a trade like that is that if it was really an intuitive impulse, it'll work. If it wasn't, if he was manufacturing that impulse because of something else going on in his life, okay, then he's going to find that out too, because I guarantee it's going to be a loser.
When you say that,
How can I say that? I
the
just,
trade works, but I mean,
No.
it could still be.
no, you're going to say, how can I say I know it's going to be a loser? I just, because,
Yeah, but does
okay,
it?
that's,
If it's a loser, does it mean that the trade wasn't the right thing to do? I mean, we never know.
I
that's
didn't
gonna
say it
be-
was right or wrong, I just said it wasn't intuitive. It wasn't a true intuitive impulse.
So you're saying that every
Yes, that's exactly what I'm
intuitive
saying.
trade is a winner?
Every intuitive trade is a winner, yes.
Okay.
That's what it means to be in the zone. You're in complete harmony with your environment.
Just because you're in harmony doesn't mean that the trade's going to work out. I mean.
Oh, no,
maybe-
when you're in harmony, that's exactly what it means. When you're in harmony, it's going to work out. There's nothing else that could happen.
No other trader could come in. that
When
just-
you're in harmony, it will work out. Nothing else can happen.
I'll stop asking questions. That question.
When you're in the zone, what you do in relationship to what's going on will be virtually perfect. That is definition of being in the zone. Perfection. If it was a true intuitive impulse, it will be perfection. If it was something else, it won't be. That's what it means to be in the zone. When you see athletes in the zone, what are you seeing? What are you seeing?
Perfection.
Perfection. That's right.
It's easier to understand when you call it the zone, but you can have intention in everything in life that didn't turn out to be wrong. But if you call it the zone, then I understand that you're saying it's
Okay.
going to walk.
Yeah, you could have different See, the thing is, you can have a different connotation for the word intuition, and mine, you know, my definition, your definition might be different, which maybe obviously is, and your definition might include things that wouldn't be included in mine. But and that's one of the problems even doing a workshop like this, is because I can be using words that we think we're sharing meanings on, and we're really not. So by me saying the word zone, then now you related that it's unconflicted, that's just an example of how that kind of thing can work. But by definition, Jeff, what I'm saying by definition is perfection. Okay? And if it didn't turn out to be perfect, then I can say that by definition you weren't in the zone. You may have thought you were, but you weren't. I'm glad we went through this, because there was obviously some misunderstandings about it, I guess, right? Or was there? No? Well, anyway. Okay, let's, so are we done with that part, that kind of philosophy about, like just a little practical philosophy about changing? That was on page 6 and 7 of section 5. And I've already gone through this really plenty of times, so we can move on, can't we? Okay, good. Okay, let's create and grow the most ideal beliefs about trading.
Do we need to do the tape first?
Oh, no, we'll do that last. Here's what we're going to do. Well, I want to finish up the material here. We'll do the tape, and then if you guys want to go through some trading patterns, I don't normally do that, by the way, and I didn't really know the consistency of the group before I got here, and I was planning on putting up a bunch of charts and patterns, just kind of some fib patterns and AB equals CD patterns. I normally don't ever do this, but if you guys want to, later on, after we get done with the rest of the stuff, we can. Okay. But I'm going to make sure we get done with all the rest of it. Because Sean has to leave by, what, 3 o'clock or 3:30? Okay.
We wait till 4, we can start trading eBay futures.
Hey, great.
People work with him.
No, I got a magic pen.
Okay, what's the primary objective? What's the primary objective? I mean, it's written in the book, but, what's that? The what?
Consistently successful trader.
And what, you forgot 2 words, 2 big ones. You forgot the 2 biggest words.
Phrase it in a sentence, Alex.
Yeah, the 2 biggest words, I am. That's our objective, to install that belief unconflicted. Install that belief unconflicted. Go ahead,
Will
Sean.
it have the same effect if you say, for example, I will trade consistently and successfully? Or do you have to say, I am?
I go along with Lewis here. I wouldn't use the word I will. I'm not saying that can't work for some
I trade
people.
consistently and successfully. Just wondering.
Semantics is really important. It really is. I don't know if I can answer your question, really, but other than just to say that I would stick with I am.
I would say trust us. The I am.
I'm not saying that saying it your way wouldn't work for you. I don't know that, Sean. There's no way I could know it, really. All I'm saying is that I agree with Randy. Trust the I am. Okay, so consistency is a function of a carefree, objective state of mind where we're making ourselves available to perceive and act upon whatever the market is offering us from its perspective in any given now moment. Okay, that's a mouthful in terms of a statement, right? There's a lot there. So this is a very complex process that we have to go through to get to the primary objective of 1, installing that belief unconflicted, because basically it means that I will be able to function in a carefree, objective state of mind. Carefree, meaning fearless. Objective, also implying that I completely and absolutely trust myself to act in my own best interest without any reservation or hesitation or internal conflict under all circumstances, where we're making ourselves available to perceive and act upon whatever the market is offering us from its perspective in any given now moment. That means no potential to associate this now moment with anything in our rational mind as a memory, and no potential to perceive or no potential to define or interpret market information in a threatening way. How are we going to get there? I've got 7 principles of consistency on the next page. How are we going to get there? How are we going to install these 7 principles of consistency in our mental environment? 1, I am a consistently successful trader because I objectively define my edges. 2, I predefine the risk of every trade. 3, I completely accept that risk or I'm willing to let go of that trade. 4, I act upon my edges without reservation or hesitation. 5, I pay myself as the market makes money available to me. 6, I continually monitor my susceptibility to making errors. 7, I understand the absolute necessity of these principles of consistent success and therefore never violate them. How are we going to get there? We need a 5-mile rule. Anybody got any ideas? If we're going to set up an exercise, to do this, what might you do based on what you've learned so far?
Start small.
It could start small, yeah. That could be part of it.
Trade mechanically.
Trade mechanically. Okay. What benefit is that going to be?
You're following definite rules, you're not guessing.
Okay, but how is that going to help you be objective to trade mechanically?
Because your mechanical system will probably have many of these rules implemented into it.
Well,
Trust the rules.
Well, it could do all those things, but that's not really. What does it mean to be objective, guys? Well, that's thinking in probabilities, right?
Right.
Okay, and what is thinking in probabilities? Anything can happen. Every moment is unique. I don't even know what's going to happen next to make money. There's a random distribution between wins and losses, and they give a set of variables that define an edge. And was there a last one? Did I get them all?
You need a flashcard for that. Put on the monitor.
There you go.
That is printed in the book in the beginning somewhere, verbatim, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
5.
Page 5.
No. Oh, 5, yeah.
Did I say 5 or did I say 4? Did I say all of them is what I'm asking.
It's section 3, page 5, there's 4 of them.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, anything can happen. Every moment is unique. There's a random distribution between wins and losses on any given set of variables to define an edge, and you don't need to know what's going to happen next to make money. There's actually 4. There's a sub one of number 3. Okay? That's what it means, okay? Now, how are we going to get those 4, let's say, fundamental truths of what the market is into our mind at a functional level? What are we going to do? We know, let's put it this way, we know that there's going to be some sort of conflicting energy inside of us, right? We know that because our minds are inherently designed to associate, and we have all these probably cultural beliefs that are going to cause us to have the potential to define and interpret market information in painful ways. So we don't even have to know exactly what those beliefs are, but if we set up an exercise or a regimen that causes us to confront one of these, regardless of what they are, at least we know that we're experiencing conflicting thoughts, something different than what our objective is, well, then we can eventually dissipate the negative energy and build up the positive energy. Now, what might we do to do that?
Know the answer.
Well, go ahead, if you know the answer, say it.
Trade mechanically for a certain period
Be
of time.
specific. Be specific.
Trade mechanically for a certain specific period of time. Until the point you have no confidence in them.
Okay, you're going to do a time exercise. This particular, what we're talking about now is not necessarily dependent on time.
A sample size.
Wait a second, is there a problem with this?
Yeah, you pop it off there.
I did? Oh, okay.
No, I meant the sample size, not time and duration.
Oh, okay, so you mean trade and sample sizes?
Right.
Okay, so here's what Jake is talking about. The way you can install these 4 or 5 fundamental truths about the nature of the market, which comprise the principles of what it means to be objective and stay in the now moment, is by going through a specific trading exercise. One that will cause you, merely by the way that it is designed, it will cause you to confront any internal argument that will come up into your consciousness, causing you to want to do something different than what your objective is. The objective will be this. First of all, you have to have what your entry signals and your exit signal on a loss have to be precise, meaning that there can be no subjective decision making as to whether or not the variables that you use to define your edge are either present or they're not. They are either present in the market based on a specific set of variables, or they are not present. You have to know exactly. And the reason why why would you have to know exactly? I'm going to ask you, why would you have to know exactly?
Otherwise it's subjective.
Otherwise you don't really know if it's internal resistance or you're saying, oh, well, this really isn't a signal. Okay? Precise. And then you commit yourself to trading in sample sizes. Sample sizes meaning 20 to 25 trade sample sizes. So instead, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Okay, so what you say to yourself is that instead of taking the next trade, the next time these set of variables roll around in the market, the next time my edge appears, instead of taking just the next trade, I am committing myself, this is the 5-mile rule, I am committing myself to take the next 20 trades. To take the next 20. Why is this? Oh wow. Can you guys still see that? Is everybody all right? I'm going to commit myself to take the next 20 trades. Now, what is that going to do for you? I'll set up the details of this in a second. What is this going to do for you by having to take the next 20 trades?
Force you to confront everything.
Yeah, because see, even though you may have a methodology, your edge may work, let's say, 60% of the time. And by the way, I want to stress, the edge that you use for this exercise does not have to be particularly good. It can be very mediocre. It doesn't matter. It's doing the exercise that counts. It doesn't really matter what your win-loss ratio is. I mean, except for the fact you don't want to hit 20 in a row as losers. I mean, you know. But here's the important part of this. What do we know about the nature of the market? That anything can happen, that every moment is unique, and that there's a random distribution between wins and losses, and I really don't need to know what's going to happen next to make money. Doing this exercise appropriately will convince you of every single one of those statements. Every single one of those concepts you will be thoroughly convinced of if you subject yourself to this exercise. You want to know why? Because you don't know the sequence to wins and losses on this 20 trade sample size. You don't know what it's going to be. It could be win, loss, win, win, loss, 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 loss. Now what do you do? No, it doesn't matter. I'm just saying, no, now, hey, you've just taken 4 losses in a row. Yeah, you still have to take the trade, but what is your rational mind going to be screaming? I know what's going to happen here. I know this trade is a loser. Right. And when you put this one on, and it turns out to be a winner, and I will say that in almost all cases it will be. Really, I'm serious. Mm-hmm. It will be. Then what? You just added energy. You just added energy to a belief that says, you know what? I thought I knew what was going to happen. You know, I didn't. Or anything can happen. Every moment is unique, meaning that, okay, I don't know. It only takes one trader somewhere in the world to negate the positive outcome on my edge. And I thought that one trader or more was definitely going to do it. But the reality is, it didn't happen that way. Anything can happen, meaning winner or loser. And you know what? Since I didn't know what was going to happen next when I thought that I did, I really don't need to know what's going to happen next to make money. And you go through this exercise, well, let's put it this way, you go through the exercise, all 20, as best you can. If you can't get these trades on perfectly, that's all right. Because the whole idea is to do this until you can. So if it takes 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 of these 20 trade sample sizes or more, it's going to take as many as it takes. And keep on doing it until you can do it. What? How do you know when you're done?
Do it without giving it thought, or you don't have your trade carefree.
Yeah, you can do it without any conflicting or competing thoughts. That's how you know you're done. You can say, I've arrived. I have arrived. When you can go through one whole sample size without anything in your mind telling you to do anything different than other than what you set out to do. That's how you know you've dissipated all the conflicting energy. Is that making sense to everybody? How you know you've dissipated all the conflicting energy is simply, I can get through a whole sample size, and you know what? I didn't have one conflicting thought. Every time my edge appeared, I did exactly what I needed to do.
You scale down your size to your comfortable.
That's right. Now, we'll get into the details in a second, but yeah, I just wanted to get conceptually what was going on here.
So if you get through those first maybe 6 or 7, and then you just say, I'm not doing this next and I don't care, do you just go ahead and finish your 20, or do you start over?
No, you finish your 20.
So all the way through.
And see, the thing is, here's what I mean by finish your 20 is that if whatever set of variables you use to define your edge in this 20 trade sample size, you can't change in the middle of a sample size. However, once the sample size is over with, you can go back and look at your results and say, you know what? You can tweak your variables at that point. And that's why we limit the number of trades, because you just might have a really dysfunctional set of variables to define your edge, and you don't want to keep on going indefinitely. What you want to do is you want to make the sample size large enough to adequately test your edge, small enough so that if it isn't a good edge, you're not losing an inordinate amount of money before you find out. So in the middle of a sample size, you can't make any changes whatsoever. At the end of a sample size, you can go back and then use your creative juices and possibly getting some inspiration on how you might change your variables to improve your results.
I think that's really important, because I think even with myself in developing my own system, I would get stuck, but I wouldn't have enough sample size to really wait. I'd change things in between.
Can't change things in between. Finish the sample size. If you don't get this trade on, then when the next time it rolls around, do your best to get that one on. Just keep on doing it until you can do it flawlessly.
The execution of mental thought flawlessly, not the results.
Yeah, not the results. Yeah, the results might be quite mediocre, as a matter of fact. As a matter of fact, if you can do these and end up scratching, paying for commissions, I think you're doing great. Now, just think about what I said. You can do a sample size and scratch or even pay for commissions. You're doing great. Okay? Great. I didn't say good. I said great. If you just do well enough to pay for commissions, you're doing great at the end of a sample size. Go ahead.
Like two things kind of occur to me. They have two different sample sizes with two different strategies or techniques that I'm trying to perfect within myself. Can I mix them or just work on one at a time?
I don't know, you confuse me.
Okay, one of the things I want to do, and that I do now, is buy on the bid, buy a strong stop when it's pulling in on the bid, and I want to hold it against me longer.
Okay, that would be a set of rules for one sample size.
Okay.
Now what's the other one?
Hold my last 100 shares to go. Just hold it longer. Maybe
Why can't you do it in the same sample size? Because one's two different functions.
Well, that's why I don't.
Yeah, because one's a function of taking profits. You're not mixing anything. We haven't gotten into taking profits yet. I haven't gotten into the details on how to do this. I'm just talking about the concept right now. So it seems to me like, based on what you told me, unless I still have misunderstood,
I don't think you have.
you can do both those things in the same sample size.
Okay.
But you'd only have one setup in the sample size?
Only one setup, right.
Right.
Only one edge.
Only one edge.
Right.
That was gonna be my question.
Okay, so for an example, what I'm proposing is that, because a lot of you guys are stock traders, I trade futures, so if you trade futures, you're gonna have to trade 3 of something, because what I'm proposing is that you, to satisfy one of the principles, is you have to pay yourself as the market makes money available to you. What I'm proposing that you do is learn how to scale out, which we'll get into in a minute. But I had to say that to set this up. So that means you have to trade at least 3 of something, so that you can scale out in thirds. Go ahead, Jake.
Can I go ahead and do this methodology before I do the time thing, or at the same time? I'm not quite sure what to do.
Well, you can do, yeah. Damn it, that's like, yeah, you can do really, you can do it at the same time. I can say you could set this up where you could satisfy both of them when you get right down to it.
That's what
Okay?
I was supposed to ask.
You're just adding a time dimension to your edge.
I think I can, I agree.
Yeah, okay. Now, you don't have to trade 3 contracts. I mean, you can do this with 1 contract, although if you trade futures, but if you trade stocks, it's really easy, because you can divide the number of shares you trade into any fraction that you want. I mean, you can divide it into quarters, into thirds,
How
or
could you do with less than 3 contracts? Future?
just do it with 1. If you can't
You can't
afford.
scale out.
What? I know you can't scale out, but that's, but if you're not at a point where that's the part that matters, what difference does it make? Just doing it 1 step at a time. Jake, when you get right down to it, if you can't stay in the market contract more than a tick or 2, what difference does it make if you have 3 on?
Sometimes easier.
I'm sorry, Jake, but it's like, it doesn't make a lot of difference, okay? You just might as well do it with 1.
But do it as many as you can. If you
What?
can do it with the 3, then fine.
No, I would just do it with
Just
1.
do it with 1.
Do it with 1. It's all right, okay? 1 will satisfy the objective of your exercise,
Okay.
okay? However, it will not satisfy one of the principles of consistency, but that's all right, because when you can do that exercise and do it flawlessly, then you can move to 3 contracts and then integrate the money management part of scaling out into it, okay? 1 step at a time, Jake, okay? See, that's where your impatience comes in. Which is good. See, it's good. I'm glad you're here. You see, if you didn't come, you wouldn't get this, would you? That's right. See, listening to the tape, if someone like Jake weren't here, see, you wouldn't get any of this. I'm sorry, Sean, go ahead.
I just said that's harder to do than it looks.
Believe me. I tried.
Is that an understatement?
Well, you just write it up there, so, oh, yeah.
Yeah, right.
I know it's.
Yeah, it could take people a year to make up their mind to do this.
More.
Easily, a year or more to get to the point where they make up their mind to do this. Easily. I would be surprised, actually, if there were more than 1 or 2 people that could walk out of this room and start doing this.
No, I could attest.
I'd be shocked. I really would. Go ahead.
I was going to say, in your book you mentioned about the fact that there are sites, or there is 1 site where you can do
Wait, a little bit louder, because I can hardly hear you, and I probably know the people on the tape probably can't either.
In your book you mentioned that there's 1 sort of site where you can probably go through this without actually placing live trades.
Oh, yeah, you can use simulated brokerage accounts, or simulated brokerage service, put it that way.
That's not
true, Jim. No, if that's where you're at, if that's where you're at, then that's where you start.
You're not dealing with any of the real emotions.
Oh, yes, you are. That's not true.
You think so?
Oh, absolutely. No doubt about it. There are people that do not have to have the real money involved, and they feel exactly the same way, whether they're putting on a simulated brokerage account or a real one.
Really?
No difference whatsoever.
Is there a site you can,
Oh, there's AutoTrack for one thing.
you don't have to be a customer or anything?
Oh, no. Well, no, that's what they do. That's their whole purpose. Their whole purpose is our simulated brokerage accounts.
AutoTrack?
AutoTrack,
D-I-T.
What? Say it again?
A-U-D-I-T.
Yeah, AUDITTRACK.com.
There's two people talking, A-U-D-I.
T. Audit.
Audit.
Audit, oh, yeah.
Or just buy the book.
All right.
I can't afford it till I I can't afford a book till I make money off of it. Okay.
Okay. The other thing too is that there are a lot of brokerage firms that have online execution services that'll let you use them for 30 days without opening up an account.
Now it's so free. I was in a couple of competitions, snow competitions, and you can do that. You just do, I can't remember the name, but there are a couple of them. Do a search, and they do free, but they have a deadline for the end of the competition, and you can just wait,
Go ahead.
In setting up the sample, the only thing that has to be consistent throughout the 20 is the edge.
Yeah, the edge for entering the trade and how you define what a loss is. They have to be absolutely precise. Absolutely precise.
You can have different stocks.
You can have what?
You can trade different stocks.
You can trade different stocks. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that you do so. You can trade different stocks, but the edge has to be consistent, whatever the stock is. And again, it has to be precise. Entry and exit on the loss side have to be absolutely precise. Now, the other reason why a simulated brokerage account or like something like AuditTrack would be good for people is that it's a good way to forward test your edge. See, before you want to put your real money on the line, you may want to do 20 or 30 trades or 40 trades using a simulated account so you can see how well it works. Because some people don't have the sophistication to back test, and they don't have they don't even have the proper software, or want to go through the learning curve of learning how to do it appropriately anyway, or pay a back testing service. You don't have to do that. You can just forward test in a simulated account.
Can I just ask a question about
Sure.
AutoTrack?
Yeah.
Is it basically a service whereby you're seeing live price data and you're putting the trades into a fictional account with X amount of dollars in it?
I don't know that audit. See, I haven't. It's been many years since I've even seen their site, and so I don't really know what they have available right now. It's probably pretty sophisticated, but I just don't know that. Okay. But I do know that there are, like I said, there are brokerage firms that allow you to use their online execution, which will give you live data, and executions really live, but there's just no money behind it. It's a simulated account, and it's a perfect way to test a set of edges or an edge.
Okay.
If the strategy that I want to do the sample on, if the strategy that I'm trading now has 3 different edges, let's just say, breakouts, pullbacks, and something else. For the purpose of the test, I'm just choosing breakouts. Is that right? I'm just choosing one
Pick
out of whatever.
Pick one you like the best.
Just one of them.
If you want to do 2, then do it based on 2 different sample sizes.
Just want to make sure. Thank you.
Now, the other thing is that since our loss, what we determine we need to risk, to see if our edge is going to work has to be precise. We can actually calculate in advance exactly how much I need to risk on all 20 trades, if all of them turned out to be losers, right? If under the unfortunate circumstances you had 20 losers in a row, which is pretty unlikely, but it's possible. Under those unfortunate circumstances, the accumulated amount of money of 20 losses in a row, you have to be able to afford, obviously.
Utilizing a mechanical stock. You couldn't get there if you were using brakes that long would apply to your day, because you don't know where you're...
The stop has to be precise.
Yeah.
Okay, so in each case, so it has to be something that you can define in advance, that amount of money, and it should be consistent in each case, it really should.
So like a dollar stop then?
Well, I'm not saying picking an arbitrary dollar stop. It should be a stop based on technical indicators. Okay.
Yeah, but even if it's using the prior day's low, you can just change your share size, so you're risking $100 per trade or $200 per trade.
That's true. You could do that too. Good point. Very good.
Would you repeat that?
Even if your exit is going to be the prior day's low, so for every trade it'll be a different fraction. It'll be 30 cents on one and 50 cents on the other. You can make each trade, you can say that you only want to risk $200, so that each trade you'll vary your share size. So if you're closing out at the prior day's low, you're still losing the same set of the same dollar
value. Yeah, good. Yeah, thanks, Jeff. That's good. Everybody clear so far? And why are you doing this exercise? Why would you even consider doing it if you do decide to do it?
Confront everything head on.
Yeah, head on. Create a head-on confrontation. A head-on confrontation with every conflict that you have inside of you about what it means to think in probabilities. And that's exactly what you want. We're not avoiding this confrontation. We are looking forward to it. Because the sooner we get through it, in other words, every time I act in a way that's consistent with my goal or desire, I am adding energy to a positive belief about what it means to think in probabilities. I am detracting energy from all the other conflicting beliefs. It's that simple. We are looking forward to the confrontation.
Ready for a rumble.
Is there like a support group we can call?
Not a bad idea, actually. If you want to create one, go ahead.
How many people come out the other end?
What's that?
How many people come out the other end of that?
How many people come out and what?
Come out and
Make it through.
make it through.
Oh, make it through the, I don't know. Not that many people will even do it, really.
I tried twice.
It's tough. It's a hard thing to do. As simple as it is, it's hard to do. It's hard to get to the point where you're willing to do it, put it that way. And then do it until you can do it without conflict.
Especially after the third loss.
I can see the wheels rolling in Dave's brain. He's going to make everybody in his office go back and do this.
Well, actually, I was thinking back to a time when I'd first gotten started as a trader. Someone who was far more experienced said to me, "You're never going to learn how to hit fastballs by hitting softballs." And I don't know if it really relates directly to that, but there was an element of truth to that, with the exception of the fact that you can't. What he was really defining, or what he was trying to point out to me, is you should trade larger on a per trade basis. But if you don't have the skills necessarily, you don't want to go in there swinging 1,000 shares if you're still learning. But maybe what he was trying to get through to me was something like this, or something on this level.
You could do as many trades in one day as come up.
Yeah.
In other words, you could theoretically get through it in a day.
You could. Yeah, that's true. You could.
Dave trades 1 minute charts. He can do this in...
Your trade stop.
He can be through this in
I've been through
opening.
Jeez. Jake. What did he say? Jake's a scalper. Anyway, go ahead.
If you were trading 5 or 10 minutes, then it might be a couple of days before you do all 20 trades.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
If on the other hand, your
Daily
edge
charts?
only does once a week,
That's right. It could take you 10 weeks.
there won't be any difference in terms of...
Well, it just depends on how fast you want to learn. If you use daily or weekly charts to generate signals, they don't come up very often, it's going to be tough to do this exercise. You want to go down to an hourly chart or something, so you can at least get 4 or 5 trades a week.
get the pain out of the way.
You're pre-programmed. What's
That's the way I'm looking at it.
Actually, remember I said when you're doing this sort of thing, attitude is everything? Getting comfortable with being in a state of discomfort, getting comfortable with being in a state of discomfort would help you a lot. Because the more comfortable you are or get with being uncomfortable, the faster the faster the discomfort leaves, where it just becomes a natural sequence of events, meaning that I intend to neutralize this belief, install this belief, and there's no discomfort at all anymore. Whereas initially in this process, neutralizing beliefs can create some degree of discomfort for a while, because in some ways it can be a little disorienting. It's like if you really effectively knock the energy out of something, it's like a part of your identity is gone for a little while, and you kind of get used to it and everything's fine, and you just kind of say, okay, this is who I am now. But the more you do it, the easier it gets, and the less discomfort there is. In fact, there doesn't have to be any discomfort at all.
Could it create feelings of anxiety as the beliefs are like?
Yeah, I guess it's hard to say. I mean, everyone's probably going to be a little bit different. Just underline, even if you did feel that way, just know that, just say to yourself that you're going to be fine. That, you're just stepping into a new version of yourself. That's all. Because you're going to be fine. I'm just stepping into a new version of myself. Okay, a much greater version. I'm stepping into a greater version of myself. And I will be fine. And you will. You really will. You guys ready to go again? Yeah. One of the things we were talking about while everyone else was talking was that John also did Evelyn Wood's reading dynamics, and I asked him to experience the same thing. And go ahead, John.
Oh, yeah, and actually the comprehension, I would mention, comprehension was better too, but it was the same thing. Once I stopped reading, when I got out of college, I stopped reading. But
I went home for the summer, came back in the fall, and it was gone.
I don't think I ever got to the aha point.
And one other thing I mentioned too is that years later I saw a TV program, one of these kind of amazing feat kind of TV programs where they took a guy who claimed to, I guess they measured him at about maybe 25 to 30,000 words a minute. And what they did to confirm it is that they picked out randomly some books, some very obscure books out of the Library of Congress or something, and then put him in front of a video camera to have him read this stack of books in a very short period of time, or something the equivalent to how many words there were, based on the amount of time, and then asked him, detailed questions about what he read, and he did it.
You turn the pages at that rate.
That's another thing you got to learn how to do is turn pages really fast. And they're also big books. That was it too. It was very small print and really big books. So he could, in fact, like you could have like several thousand words on a page, so that you don't have to. That's the other thing I remember. They're really big books. What?
The big pages make it easier.
Yeah, the big pages make it easier to turn. So otherwise, you couldn't be reading these pocketbook novels at 30,000 words a minute because you couldn't turn the pages fast enough.
And is that as effective as actually just reading the book normally in terms of the retention of the
Ask John, that's what he just said.
you're more effective.
No kidding.
The faster you read, the more you comprehend.
Is it enjoyable? Like if you're reading just a novel or something?
Well, let's put it this way. Now think of it now. Let's put it this way. First of all, you're reading, let's say, 3 to 5 times faster than you normally do. And so if you enjoyed it the first time, or you didn't feel like you got enough out of it, read it 3 or 4 more times. and you're still doing it faster than what you normally would.
That's because when you said you read books 50 times.
No, I wasn't using no, I wish. The other thing is that one of the things that it does is it cuts out the subvocalization process. One of the reasons why it's so fast is that you're no longer subvocalizing. You're not saying the words to yourself anymore. Okay? So there's a direct see, comprehend. There's no other thought process. That's pretty cool. It really is.
How long's the course?
How long was the course? About 8 weeks, something like that?
You can take them locally, I assume?
You know, there's videos you can get for this now. I mean, I see infomercials. That's probably the same thing. I know there's other companies that have kind of ripped Evelyn Wood off, basically. You know, but go ahead, John. What?
No, I think the guy that you saw do the library conduit trip actually had an infomercial for you.
Really? Yeah. So there are. I've seen infomercials, and it's probably the exact same process. I would imagine. You know, and I think, does Evelyn Wood still exist? You don't think so anymore?
People stop reading.
People just watch TV now.
Okay, where are we? Okay, we got this down. Precise entry, precise exit on the. Now this is starting to piss me off. Precise entry, precise exit on the loss side. So now we're going to do profits. Now, the way, when I first, I started trading like back in either 1978 or 1979, I don't remember which. And when I moved to Chicago and went to work for Merrill Lynch at the Board of Trade, I was trading a lot of silver. And there were two things that acted, two things that kind of came together that caused me to think about this whole idea of scaling out of a position. In other words, when you put a position on, divide it into fractions, and then take money as the market makes it available. The first thing that happened is that back in the early 70s, it was like 1971 or 72, I went to Las Vegas for the first time. I think I was only maybe, how old would I have been? Maybe 23 years old. But before I went, I got this book by a guy by the name of Dr. Edward Thorp called Beat the Dealer. Anybody know this book? Anybody read it? Okay. John? You? No? Okay. Anyway, this guy was a mathematician. He's the one that started the whole blackjack card counting craze. Edward Thorp's the guy that did it. And what he did is he went through, based on, you know, the primitive computers that existed back then, and he said that you could take, you know, a basic playing strategy in blackjack. It wasn't actually basic. And based on the consistency of the deck, and how do you know the consistency of the deck? You have to learn how to count the cards. And back in Vegas at that time, they predominantly played one deck games, so it was very easy to keep track of the cards. So what you basically did was you had to keep track of how many face cards and tens were in the deck in relationship to all the rest of the cards and the aces. And so you had a plus minus count. You kept this plus minus count in your mind. And then what he had 4 basic tables that consisted of whatever the dealer's up card was in relationship to your 2-card total, in relationship to the card count, whether you would double down, whether you would split your cards, you know, if you split 2s, split 3s, split 4s, 8s or aces, and or whether you took a hit or not. So what I did is I memorized all the tables, and then I practiced for months counting cards. I flipped the cards as fast as I could and see how fast I could keep the count, okay? And then I even, and this is like back in the early 70s, I even did my own self-hypnosis tape. And the tape consisted of the fact that I was telling myself that I wouldn't get distracted, that, you know, because the books would say, you know, they're going to give you drinks, they're going to do this, they're going to try to do everything to take away, you know, your ability to stay focused. And so I did the self-hypnosis tape and said I was a winner and all this kind of good stuff, right? So I went to Vegas to test this whole thing out, and I tell you, I could not lose. I really mean that. I had winning streaks of 15, 16 winning hands in a row, getting blackjacks like crazy. I mean, I was just really lucky. I did what I needed to do. I mean, I shouldn't say I was just, not only was I lucky, I mean, I was following my rules, I was doing all the right things. However, I didn't have any money management, meaning that I was just betting one unit at a time. I wasn't increasing my bets. I wasn't taking advantage of the fact that I had all these great winning streaks going. And the next thing that I did too, which was typical, is that once I was winning in blackjack, I started pissing around with craps and roulette and other games and pissed my money away, okay? So I did. I lost almost all my money on all these other games. And so, and this really could be like out of a movie, I swear. I look back on this event, it was really like out of a movie. And so it was like, my dad and I went with my dad, and we had about maybe an hour or two left before we had to leave for the airport. and I only had like, I think maybe 50 or 60 bucks left. That was it to gamble with. And so I sat down at a table with a guy who was playing from $100 to $1,000 a hand. He had all black, he was playing black chips, they're $100 chips, or whatever, I don't remember the casino we were at. And so I sat, I don't know if I sat exactly right next to him, but we played for a while, we were the only ones at the table. And he saw the way I was playing, and he probably assumed I was counting cards or something, I don't know. But he really liked the way I was playing, and he got up from the table and kind of tapped me on the shoulder, and he you know, and he kind of put his arm around me. He was a professional gambler, he was a professional blackjack player. He's like, you know, hey kid, I'm going to teach you something here, okay? I like you, I like what you're doing, I'm going to teach you something. You know, you listen to me, follow me, right? And so why are you pointing at John? What's going on here?
I did this. I actually took lessons from a guy who put me under his wing and funded the team, you know, so we all should.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
I used to count cards, but not like he did.
So you know exactly what I'm talking about here. Okay, so anyway, he taught me this money management technique called 1, 2, 3, 5, 5, 10. And here goes, I should have set this up in advance. So it's gonna take me a minute. Let's see. I think I did that right. Okay, here's the concept behind this. Now, he didn't explain the concept, he just told me how to do it. And then, interestingly enough, about 3 or 4 years later, I was a charter subscriber to Gambling Times magazine, and and this system was in here. It's called 1, 2, 3, 5, 5, 10. And basically, the philosophy behind it would be like this. Winning streaks and losing streaks occur. Okay? In other words, winning can come in streaks and losing can come in streaks. And the whole idea would be to take maximum advantage of a winning streak and lose the least amount on a losing streak. The problem is, you don't know if you're on a streak basically until it's over, one way or the other. Is there a way to mechanically handle maximizing your profits on a winning streak and minimizing your losses on a losing streak? This is one way of doing it. Like I said, it's called 1, 2, 3, 5, 5, 10, and it works like this. You divide your available capital into 100 units, whatever it is. So let's say you've got $1,000 to gamble with. You're going to divide it up into 100 $10 units. And so you always start out with 1 unit, which would be $10 in this case. And if you lose that unit, then the next hand you put down 1 unit again. And if you lose that unit, the next hand you put down 1 unit. So in 3 losing hands in a row, you've lost 3 units. But if you win, here's what you do. So I'm playing this. This is a hand 1 in this case. I bet $10. So, yeah, this is a hand 1. See, 1, 2, 3, 5, 5, 10. That's how you know how the system works. So I bet 10, 1 unit. Bet 10 is equal to 1 unit. I win a unit. I have $20. I don't rake off anything. I put that $20 in the next hand and let it ride. I win 2 hands in a row. I've won $20. I've got 40. I rake off 10, which now I have my original unit back with 2 hands in a row. I've got to win 2 hands in a row to get my original unit back. But I've got 30 that I'm betting with. I win 3 hands, win it again. I've got 3 hands in a row. I've got $60. I take off another 10. Now I need 3 hands in a row to make a 1 unit profit. But on my 4th hand, I've got $50 bet. I make $50. I've got $100. I rake off 50. So 4 hands in a row winning, I've got 7 units or $70. On the 5th hand, I bet 50. I make 50. I get 100. I don't rake off anything. On the 6th hand, I've got 10 units riding. See, 1, 2, 3, 5, 5, 10. That's the number of units riding. I've got 10 units riding. I make 10. I've got 200. I rake off 10. I've got 170 or 17 units. And I keep that 10 riding until I lose it and go back to 1. It automatically takes care of the winning streak by maximizing my profits on a winning streak without me knowing that I'm on a winning streak, minimizing my losses on a losing streak without even knowing it, because on a losing streak I'm only losing 1 unit at a time. Using this kind of, and you can do any combination you want, by the way. He taught me 1, 2, 3, 5, 5, 10. You can do other combinations of this. And mathematically, I don't really know what's best. I really don't. All I'm saying is that, but this does work. If you go to Vegas or someplace where there's a casino and try this out and follow the rules, do it. It works, it really does. Because what this is not taking into consideration, this particular example, it isn't taking into consideration the times, for an example, you might have 100, you might have 100, or might have $50, 5 units riding, and you get an opportunity to split your hand or double down and you win again. Stay with it, just take the additional profits off. But see, those circumstances, in this area right here, when you've got 1, 2, 3, or 5 units riding, in any of these circumstances where you get an opportunity to double down or split your hand and win, it just magnifies the outcome. As well as magnify the outcome on the loss side if you're, if you happen to double down and lose under these circumstances too. So, from this experience, after, you know, I went to Chicago, and like I said, one of the things I traded the most was silver. I really liked the silver market at that time. It was really volatile, number one. If anybody remembers back then, one of the reasons why it was so volatile was because gold and silver were still, you know, a real significant part of what people thought to be, you know, the monetary stability. And at that time, in like 1982 especially, there was the threat of an international banking crisis because a lot of the South American countries were going to default on their loans. Does anybody remember all that crap? Well, as a result, the silver market the gold and silver were particularly volatile. And one of the things that I did is when I would go back and review all my trades and analyze all my trades, I found that it was really rare. Say 1 out of 10 times. I don't remember the exact statistics. But let's say it was rare that I entered into a trade where the market went against me and stopped me out without giving me anything first. Nothing. Just, I put my order in, my order gets hit, and I get stopped out. The market never even went 1 tick in my favor. Maybe 1 out of 10 times. Then I looked at how many times did I actually end up getting stopped out where the market may have gone 2 or 3 ticks in my favor before stopping me out. And then it occurred to me, and I said, you know what? What if I divided my position up into thirds and took my first third off religiously after I got 2 or 3 ticks? So what would end up happening? Let me go back. Oh, maybe the same. This isn't going to be so good. So what would end up happening is that if I put on 3 contracts right here at support, if I got, let's say, 5 cents on one of them, I took that 5 cents off every single time. Not only did it reduce my risk if I ended up getting stopped out on the last 2/3 of my position, it ended up overall paying for my expenses. Doing this every single time without hesitation ended up paying for my expenses.
In the event you get stopped out.
Yeah, I don't mean in this particular trade. It wouldn't pay for my expenses because the amount of profit right here wouldn't pay for the loss on the last 2/3. That's not what I mean. I mean overall, accumulatively, yes, whatever. It ended up paying for my expenses by always taking this first third.
So you take a third after 2 or 3 ticks, did you say?
And in silver at that time, I think it was 5 cents.
So
it's going to be different every market, by the way. I'm not.
Some percentage then of.
Yeah, some small percentage, right.
Percentage of what your stop is?
No, it had nothing to do with where my stop was. It just had to do with the way the volatility of the silver market and my assessment of what generally the possibilities were in most cases. In other words, based on the way I defined support at that time, I would almost always get at least, except for under rare circumstances, always get at least 5 cents before it stopped me out, if it was going to stop me out at all. Which, let's say that happened, let's say 40% of the time. And then the other 10% of the time, I got stopped out without getting anything. Where I got stopped out on my whole position. Now, this whole concept was based on what I learned from this guy in Vegas. Because I'm thinking to myself, you know, when I get into a trade, I don't know how far this market's going to go in my favor. And so what I wanted to do was maximize, from a philosophical perspective, basically what I was thinking, I want to maximize my profits on a winning trade, minimize my losses on a losing trade, when I don't know how much I'm ever going to get.
Yes, one thing I've never quite figured out, is how do you really minimize the losses when you're going at a trade at once?
Well, I'm not sure if
when you're initiating the trade with your full amount of contracts, right?
Yeah.
You're going with 3.
Right.
So if you're like you say, get into like a series of losses because of the markets or whatever, how do you minimize that?
you just can't only in relationship to your risk to reward ratio. That's, in other words, it's not minimizing it the same as in the example. The example that I gave you for the blackjack was just philosophically.
I know that.
Okay? But I'm still not sure what you're asking me, Jake.
Now, just wonder if there's another way besides going in, like scaling in, or you have to just go in with your full.
You can scale in. It seems to me there'd be a lot of trouble to do that, but it's, if you want to. But see, the problem is, Jake, is this: it's not a matter. You wouldn't even be asking the question if you've accepted the risk. Now think about why are you even asking this question in the first place? What are you trying to do? By asking the question, what you're in essence saying to me is that I'm trying to avoid the risk in some way.
Or minimize the risk.
Well, so is what you're saying to me is that you can't afford to trade?
No, I just wonder if you ever thought about another way of getting into it without having a full position on it.
Well, no, you can scale into a position, but again, it's like take the available capital that you have to trade with, and if you can afford to lose that available capital, then reconcile. Don't trade until you're reconciled that you can spend that amount of money. Then you won't even be worried about whether or not you're minimizing your risk. You minimize your risk based on your ability to make an assessment as to how far the market has to move against you to find out if that edge is going to work. That's how you minimize your risk. Now, from a money management perspective, if you're uncomfortable, if you're legitimately uncomfortable trading more than, let's say, the minimum amount for this exercise, which was 3, then don't do it. Really, don't do it until you're comfortable. And that's the only way that I know of to minimize the risk, other than the way you define an edge consistently gives you at least a 2-to-1 to 3-to-1 risk to reward ratio.
Yeah, so in other words, you tested it enough in your own trading with Silver to know that most of the time it's going to work.
That's exactly what I said. Yeah, that I analyzed my trades. And found that if I was going to get stopped out, let's say that 40% of the time 50% of the time that I ended up getting stopped out of the trade, the market gave me something first. It just didn't go, I just didn't get in here and it did this.
Right.
It went like this and then this, okay? And I thought, you know what, if I take off a percentage of my position when I get this, that it'll make a huge difference in my results overall. And it did. Because remember, now I'm only getting stopped out on 2/3 of my position. I've eliminated 1/3 of the actual risk. And I've also booked some profits.
Right.
Okay? Yeah, so it really minimizes my losses.
Right.
And so now I've got 2/3 of my position still on. What am I going to do? I'm going to take them off at predetermined points, or as close to predetermined as I can. And I don't, like when Daniel brought up trailing stops, I thought to myself, because I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to let it go and then maybe let it only come back this far against me and get out. I didn't like that at all.
Did you work it on a percentage basis or just based on the market itself?
Yeah, based on the swings that I trade, based on the time frame that I was in and swings that I trade. Right, exactly. Because I, like everyone else, wanted to be in a big move. And I'm thinking to myself, how am I going to assure myself of ever being in a big move if what normally happens is that if I don't book any profits, if I let this market go up to here and then come all the way back down to my entry point, which it could happen, without having taken any profits along the way, I will blow out of this position without really even knowing for sure whether or not it's just coming back down to test support and make a double bottom, then go right back up again. And that happens a lot. And so it happened enough times where I said, that really pissed me off. Because it was extremely difficult to stay in, because I didn't want to break a rule that says I'm not going to take what was a winning position and let it go into a loser without having taken any money at all. It was bad enough I didn't take any money. I'm not going to let it go into a loser. So even though, based on, let's say, my technical expertise, I could have said, well, it's probably just making a double bottom. Emotionally, I couldn't let myself lose money on that trade. And so I'd get out of it until I started scaling out. And then if it came back, I didn't care. Because at the very least, if I wanted to scratch it, I would. In many cases, I wouldn't even do that. I'd still let it define itself based on my original risk point on that last contract, or that last third of the
You
position.
would never move it to break even?
Oh yeah, I would move it to break even. I'm not saying I never moved it to break even, but after the second one was off, I'd move it to break even for sure.
But taking that first third.
The first third,
was
right.
what allowed you to overcome that.
Yes, right, taking the first third. And see, the thing is, here's what's really important from this psychologically too, is that one, remember there's a couple of things. One, what's the primary objective? What is our primary objective? Oh, come on, Greg. You did that on purpose, right? Oh, okay. Well, oh my. Anyway, what's our primary objective?
Be successful.
What? Yeah. Remember the belief, to create a belief that I'm a consistently successful trader? Remember remember this? that's where we're at in the book, if you guys recall. All right? Yeah, that was the primary objective. And if that's the primary objective, then for me to install a belief like that, I essentially have to create experiences of consistent success, do I not?
Yes.
And so therefore every time I take part of my position off as a winner, am I not making myself a winner? And by making myself a winner, am I not adding energy to a belief that says I'm a consistent winner? And therefore, that's exactly what will happen. And by doing this, it also gave me the psychological resources, because now I'm in a carefree situation, a risk-free situation. I don't have really any money at risk right now, except the last third of my position based on the amount of profits I have. Those profits are mine, and I do look at that as being at risk. In other words, when I'm in a position, I feel like I'm obligated to make a constant, never-ending assessments as to the risk-to-reward ratio. Think about this. As traders, we are obligated to make trading subjectively, or even mechanically for that matter. And this is what makes trading so hard. This is what makes taking profits so difficult, is because we are obligated to make these constant, never-ending assessments as to what the risk-to-reward ratio is in any given moment. Because if the market's going in my favor, I am at market risk to giving all these profits back, am I not? Mm-hmm. So I have to say to myself, how much of what I've already gotten am I willing to risk to find out if it does this, to find out if it does this, to find out if it does this? And what's the potential? Now, you don't necessarily have to do it to the extent that I'm talking about. Many of these places that you take off your profits can almost be arbitrary. They really can. Educated guesses, E-D-G-U. E-D-G-E-U, guesses, educated. Just do it, as Nike would say. Just scale out. But I like scaling out at places where it looks to me like the market will give me a little bit of a retracement, meaning that if I'm going to move from here to here, or if I'm going to move to here, what I'm doing is I've got this high and this low, and I'm looking at my fib, my 786, my 618, my 50%, my 382, and I'm looking how it behaves at each one of these spots. And so I'm saying, what's the potential based on this wave right here of it getting up to a 50% or a 618? And at the very least, I'm going to have my second contract or my second third off by then. Instead of waiting for it to come back as a trailing stop, I'm going to look for it all.
Take it off at 618.
Oh yeah, sure.
Then you've got the rest left over to see if it.
Yeah, the rest left over to see if
100%.
to see if I get at least a 127 up here.
Right.
A 127 of this move right here, like this. See if it even goes through. And other times, what I'll do too, even though I haven't done this in years actually, but I used to do this, is that I would take it off right under this support, this resistance spot right here, and then re-enter on a buy stop. So I would see, because in essence I'm saying, am I willing to risk all this to find out if I can get this? Because if it goes through here, chances are it's going to keep on going and give me a 127, right, at least. But am I willing to risk all that just to see if it does that? In other words, am I willing to give up this opportunity? This is opportunity cost right here. The opportunity cost of this, I'm willing to give up to book all of this.
Right.
And that just made all the sense in the world to me. And I you know, and as far as my, one second, John,
Yep.
and as far as my customers at Merrill Lynch that did the same things as me at that time, this saved us an enormous amount of money by doing this. Enormous. John, go ahead.
So you're just going to take your last third if you have your breakthrough for your next leg up? You're just going to take your
Oh,
last
I'll
third?
re-enter the whole position.
Oh, you would?
Oh, yeah, just as a breakout trade then.
It becomes a new trade?
It becomes a new trade.
Not,
Sure.
okay.
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
It's not like, oh my gosh, it's going more. It's a brand new decision.
It's a brand new decision trade, right? Just as if I take it off at a 786 and I get it, now depending on the swing, if you're trading 2-minute charts, I'm not going to be doing this. And see, the problem is I trade 2-minute charts now. So whereas before I used to trade daily charts.
So what do you do now?
What?
So what do you do now?
A lot of it, I'm out of the whole thing. I'm out of the whole thing at a 618 or 786.
So you're not really doing it?
No. No, but on a daily chart, what I would do is that if I got, say the market did go up to like a 786, I would, if it came back down and I got another swing where I'm getting it like this, I would re-enter the whole position. If I got an isolated low right here, I'd put on the whole thing again as another trade, based on whatever kind of retracement I was looking at.
I think that's a really, you have to make that decision in your mind that you're not adding to the past trade. It's a new trade.
It's a new trade. Yeah, I'm already out of this though. Keep in mind, John, I'm already out of this. I've already booked my profits. I'm making a decision based on this retracement as a brand new trade. This is the decision-making process that's based as a brand new trade.
But as an amateur, we could make the mistake of not pulling that last third, see that breakthrough, go back in, and mentally get into it's a continuation of the first trade.
If you could do that, just as long as you only added on 2/3.
Right.
You've already got a third on. Okay, so all your see the problem. Well, it doesn't have to be a problem, but yeah, you're not going to add the whole thing back on. You're not going to add another whole position. You add on 2/3 of the position because you've already got a third on. And the other thing, I'm glad I just popped in my brain again, is that not only are you making yourself a consistent winner, you're creating these experiences of consistency. I am a consistent winner because you're constantly booking profits as the market makes it available to you. The only drawback to this is that if the market really gives you a monster move, you might have the tendency to say to yourself, oh, I wish I had my whole position on. Which I found over the years teaching people this, that's typically the reason why they won't do it. This is one of the most important concepts you can learn as a trader. Other than all the other stuff we were teaching about thinking in probabilities, in terms of taking profits, I can't stress how important this is.
What if you're like on a 5-minute time frame? You can maybe do two units and still try to get some of that concept to work?
That's the question's too vague, Jake. I don't know what you mean. When you say a 5-minute time frame, you know,
All right, like you're
I don't know what kind of swings you're trading.
No, I
you
said
know.
you're, like, for example, you mentioned you're using 2-minute time frame for your
Right.
trades now, so that's...
I trade a 2-minute chart, yeah.
Right.
I trade the patterns that a 2-minute chart gives me.
Right, so it's hard to scale out 3 units on a 2-minute time frame, right?
No, it's not hard to divide into thirds. I just don't do it the way I did it on a daily chart, based on these retracements that, you know, because this, in a lot of cases, it's just noise. If you looked at what I'm giving you as if it were a daily chart, a market coming back to this point right here, let's say, which would be, let's say, a 618 of this move right here instead of this move right here, 618, that would probably be a good place that the market's going to reverse, and I'll just add the whole position back on. On a 2-minute chart, you know, if the market does this, or let's say, you know, the market does this on a daily chart and comes back to this, that would still be a good trade. On a 2-minute chart, that might only be, you know, 2 S&P points. You know, it's not, there's not enough there. That's what I'm saying. Okay?
I think on that 2-minute time frame, I can relate really well to that. You know if there's no need to put a stop, the market stop going up.
Oh, yeah, right, yeah, and I don't put stops in the market, I mean, I just get out, you know. Now, if you don't trust yourself to just get out, then you gotta put stops in the market. Now, the other thing that makes it so important is that if you resist, you find yourself resisting scaling out, if, and this is predicated on, you understand the underlying dynamics of what I'm saying here in terms of its importance to establish a belief in your own consistency, and you find yourself resisting doing it, what would that tell you about your mental makeup? Or in any given moment, if you're in the market, you're in a winning trade, and you find yourself, resisting doing it. The conflict, yes, but that what?
Your belief.
You're convinced it's going to keep on going.
Oh,
Okay? You would virtually have to be convinced it's going to keep on going, which in essence means that you think you know what's going to happen next. Just like people who would add to a winning position, there are floor traders that I've worked with that were psychologically nimble enough to add to a winning trade. As the market was going in their favor, they were actually adding to it. But they were psychologically nimble enough that if it came back a certain percentage, they'd blow out of the whole thing, and, with their profits, normally, if they had the opportunity to. The problem is, from a psychological perspective, as you add to a winning position, you're becoming greater, you have a greater and greater psychological commitment to that market, for that market to keep on going. You don't know how far it's going to go. And the greater your commitment, the less the mental flexibility. And the chance of you making a trading error are almost 100%. How are we doing time-wise?
320.
320. Ooh, my. Longer than I thought. Okay.
Go trade stocks.
Well, first of all, I use the 1, 2, 3, 5, 5, 10 just as a concept, as an analogy to show conceptually why it was so important to use a money management regimen that did it for you automatically. In other words, what I'm really saying is that do I really have to know how far a market is going to go in my favor to be able to book consistent profits? No, I don't. Just like I didn't have to know how much of a winning streak I might get in blackjack to book consistent profits. And to maximize it at the same time. Now, based on what I just said, what is your question? Because I didn't understand it.
I understand how you'd implement something like that with a single hand of blackjack. If you only have one, you're only making one bet at one time.
Okay.
But if I'm making 10 bets at one time, how do you?
In blackjack or in trading?
I'm trading stocks.
Okay, then relate it to the stocks then. Just tell me.
I've got 10 different positions I'm putting on in 10 different stocks.
For 10 different reasons, 10 different edges?
It could all be the same edge.
All the same edge, okay.
I don't know how many of them are going to be winners.
Right.
But
what do you know?
At the time I put them on, I don't know what's going to happen.
But what do you know? About anything. What do you know? What do you know? When you put these 10 positions on, what do you know?
They meet the criteria of my edge, and so I put those.
And what else do you know?
I know how much of the risk, I know what my targets are.
Then again, I don't really know what you're asking me.
It sounded like, maybe I didn't understand the way the 1, 2, 3, 5, 5 work, but it sounded like you were increasing your risk as you generated more profits, or did I not understand that?
Oh, no, yeah, you're right. Okay, now I understand what you're saying. Don't relate this directly one-to-one. It's just a concept that just using as an analogy. You're right. Based on the 1, 2, 3, 5, 5, 10, it would seem as if I am actually increasing my position if I relate it to trading.
Right.
And I'm not doing that. I'm actually doing the opposite. The difference is the only thing that really relates directly is the fact that we're talking in terms of streaks.
Okay.
A streak of wins in blackjack relates to a trend, a streak in your favor. That's all the analogy gave you, okay? Was streak for streak. But in this case, I'm scaling out of the streak in my favor, using a scaling out money management technique to assure myself that I will be a consistent winner. And then, but what this example gave you was that it assured you that you would minimize your losses on a losing streak, okay? Not necessarily completely maximize your winnings on a winning streak, but give you so much more in a winning streak than what you lose on a losing streak that overall you're going to come up on that winner.
Right, you could apply that if you just traded one position, you could apply that same thing.
I'm not sure how. I don't know.
Are you not raising your risk there when you're playing blackjack with each hand?
No, not really. No, absolutely not.
Profits, but
Well, how can I be raising my risk if once I'm past the second hand, I've already booked. By the second hand, I've already booked.
Yes, I agree.
So
Raising your bet.
I'm raising my bet, but not my risk.
Right.
See, the difference between what you were saying is if you raise your bet in the stock, you turn over one hand, you're always at risk the hand that you put.
No, I mean, I can raise my bet. I can raise my bet. The problem is if I put on 10 positions right now all at once, then I have no idea where I fall. It doesn't. I was just curious.
I think you have the same problem I have, too. I still haven't really reconciled how to really do this yet. Because if you put on your full position, you're at maximum risk.
Well, it's not the full position.
Is that what you're saying?
No, I mean, here, in order to decide how much to bet, you have to know what happened in the last hand, right?
It's predicated on the last hand, absolutely.
Right, but if I put 10 positions on, I don't have a last hand until one of them starts to come off.
Okay.
And that's all.
The only thing I say, George, is do not relate trading to this. Okay. In your case, forget this. Okay. Just do it with blackjack. Okay.
I thought you had some way I could just continue to raise my bet. So.
Yes, there is. No, there is. And but you bring up a very important point. Because doing it this way, what it does is that as you increase this, the strength of this belief in your mental system that I'm a consistently successful trader, what you do then is increase your size.
Sure.
So instead of starting out with 300 shares, let's say, and dividing them into thirds, after you get to the point where you can do this and do it without error and do it without conflict, then you divide 1,000 share position up,
right.
And then you go to 3,000 shares, and then you go to 10,000 shares or whatever.
Percentage of capital, and as the capital goes up, then you
Exactly.
maximum dollar loss per trade.
Exactly right.
Divided into shares.
Right. So that when you do get some of these moves, even that last third, you're piling up some big dough. So does that help you, Jake?
Well,
I'm not sure where you're still confused.
No, I'm just trying to, because of the time frame I'm in, because I'm just trying to figure out how do I really utilize
Jake, but the thing is, Jake, you already know what to do. There is nothing else you need to do right now, and I'm serious about that.
You can't really scale out with 3 contracts.
Jake, you shouldn't even be trading 3
I know I'm not going
contracts.
to do that immediately. Let's talk about that.
Jake, then don't worry about what you need to do later on.
Okay.
Just do what you need to do now. Okay, I'm really serious about this.
Okay.
1 contract, do the exercise, forget about everything else.
Okay.
Okay? Because I'm telling you, Jake, the only reason why you're going through this mental masturbation is you're trying to talk yourself out of doing this. You really are, and I'm serious about this.
Probably right.
Here, write him a prescription. Dr. Douglas says.
Okay?
Okay.
When Jake, as these things start to come to your mind, your task now is to say to yourself, I understand, I may not understand exactly where this is coming from, but I understand the implications. You should be writing this down, Jake. I may not understand where these thoughts are coming from, but I understand the implications. And I am committed to stay on my chosen path of trading 1 contract using the time exercise as you have already designed it. There's your prescription. So, Jake, when these conflicting thoughts come up, just say that to yourself. Just refocus, redirect your focus.
Okay.
Because that's what they are. They're just conflicting thoughts, in essence, trying to talk you out of what you need to do. Trying to talk yourself out of what you need to do.
Count breaths.
Okay? You're welcome.
I just have a quick announcement. If there's anyone who hasn't checked out yet, it's almost 3:30. They're gonna be changing the locks soon.
Okay, let's take about a 15-minute break. That'll give you guys enough time, 15-20 minutes?
Yeah.
Come on back. Excuse me, we'll finish up.
Okay.
Mom,
Yes.
I'm going to tell my wife, just I want to come and get one.
She can come in the room. She can come in if you want to wait.
Friends anywhere, but,
Yeah, you can either call them and we can start it for you, or you can go down there.
Oh, I see. Oh, I see. Okay, I've got some things here under training mechanically that will, that I just want to review. We really talked about a lot of this already. You're going to commit yourself to train a mechanical system in a predefined sample sizes to cause this head-on collision between the variables that define your edge and any mental forces that are in conflict with the 7 principles of consistency. Effectively working through these conflicts will create a resolute belief in probabilities and build a sense of self-trust that you will always, without hesitation, act in your own best interests. These are some additional tools that I'm giving you to help you work through some of the difficult moments. Frequently review and memorize the 5 fundamental truths. Does everyone know what they are? I don't refer to them as the 5 fundamental truths here in this manual, although in Training in the Zone I do. They're in section 3, page 5. I think it's page 5 or page 6.
Anything can happen.
Yeah, anything can happen. Every moment is unique. You know, there's a random distribution between wins and losses, and I don't need to know what's going to happen next. And then the sub one about an edge is a higher probability of one thing happening over another. So what you want to do is you want to keep those things in front of you all the time. You really do. So that you can review them, at least memorize them or keep them in front of you. 2, courage is its own reward. Meaning it feels good to be courageous by stepping through your fears. We don't really need any more of a reward other than the fact that we were courageous in any given moment. So that if you can muster up the courage to expand yourself in some way, it will feel good. I mean, an interesting thing. No, in that moment. Anybody watch The Fear Factor?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, in one of those shows, I remember they had to. When they had to eat, when they had to eat some of these bugs and worms, one of these they had to eat these disgustingly thick grubs or whatever. No, not the beetles. No, it was a grub one. It was a bad one. It really was. Anyway, did you notice? Now, there was no doubt about the fact that there was a huge conflict with every single one of these people, right? That they had to, what did they do? They had to make up their mind with enough conviction to work through not only the physiological aspect of, the resistance, but the mental resistance of eating these disgusting things alive, right?
Money.
Whatever the reason, doesn't matter. They made up their mind. Every single one of them on that program, that particular night, did it. And what were the results? Every one of them were in a state of euphoria afterwards. Did you notice that?
Because the bugs are good.
Yeah, right. Every one of them did it, and every one of them were in a state of euphoria. Courage is its own reward. Monitor your thoughts and actions and constantly ask yourself, is this who I am? When you're monitoring your thoughts and about to do something based on what you're thinking, and now you're catching yourself because you're doing that counting exercise, you can ask yourself, is this who I am? Is this who I want to be? Is this an expression? Is this an expression? Is what I'm about to think, say, or do an expression of who I want to be? Because if you want to be that consistently successful trader, if that's what you want to install in your mental environment as a functional part of your identity, then what you're going to want to do is constantly be asking yourself, is what I'm going to do in this moment going to contribute to or detract from that belief? Because everything we think, say, or do contributes to a belief in something. Everything we think, say, or do contributes to a belief in something. So if you want to be that consistently successful trader, you want to start paying attention to make sure that you are thinking, saying, or doing something that contributes to that belief. And if not, at least make sure that you're not thinking, saying, or doing something that detracts from it. Trading subjectively. Once you've accumulated, we've already talked about a lot of this, by the way, I'm just going to review it a little bit. Once you've accumulated the appropriate mental skills, you can move into the subjective stage of trading. In this stage, you can use everything you've ever learned about the nature of the market to do whatever you want to do. So there's a couple questions that I've given you can ask yourself to stay focused in the market's perspective. The chart represents what traders believe about the future. Is there any symmetry to this collective behavior? Look for symmetry. Trade charts that have symmetry. If the markets aren't acting in a symmetrical fashion, don't even bother with it, because chances are the relationships that you look at aren't going to work anyway. I'm getting looks here. Roman, you got a problem? Do you know what I mean by that?
Just explain a little bit more on the symmetry side.
Okay. Not all markets are going to be trading symmetrically every day. In the S&Ps, these AB equals CD relationships and Fibonacci patterns that I trade, you know, some days they are right on. I mean, you know, every single relationship is a fib, and then other days you hardly get one or two of them that work. You'd have to sit there all day to catch the one that does. And so you just look at it and say, based on the present symmetry, where is there likely to be the greatest degree of imbalance between traders who believe the market's going up and those who believe it's going down? Because that's all it really is. All price movement is a function of what traders believe about the future. So you can draw even a trend line. Just draw a simple trend line. And you know, the longer the line, meaning in the higher the time frame, the more significant if the market trades below or above that line. Because that line represents symmetry. That line represents where the imbalance is in a particular direction. If the market can all of a sudden start trading below a really valid trend line, that's powerful. The symmetry's been broken. And therefore, what you've got is a high probability that the imbalance between buyers and sellers has shifted dramatically or significantly enough for you to put on a position in that direction. Always ask yourself, what's possible? How probable is each possibility? And how much is it going to cost me to find out? And take the obvious and easy trades. Really, just take the easy and obvious ones. They're there. They really are. Don't make it complicated. Sometimes it seems as if some of the trades are so obvious that it just can't be real. And we've already talked about trading a lot, so I'm not going to really get into it anymore. I don't really know that there's anything I can even add to what we've already gone over, unless there's any questions about it. Otherwise, I put these affirmations in here because what I would suggest that you do is take these affirmations and read them into a cassette yourself. In other words, empower these words with your voice. You can go to somebody else if you prefer, but I would prefer that you not, because you would be empowering yourself as opposed to giving the power to somebody else to speak these words for you. And I'll just read them.
I acknowledge there may be aspects, components, and principles of successful trading that I may not be aware of. As my awareness grows of what it means to be a great trader, I will not take for granted or assume that these new awarenesses have integrated into my mental system in a way where they are completely functional or not in conflict with anything else I've already learned. Therefore, the words I'm about to speak to myself, I willingly and wholeheartedly give the power to enhance and change the structure and content of my mind. I accept these enhancements and changes enthusiastically and lovingly let go of any reservations or resistance. I empower these words to become my internal and external reality. My methodology identifies patterns in market behavior and gives me signals to do something. It is normal for my mind to think these signals are telling me what's going to happen next. But to be a consistently successful trader, I realize that I have to train my mind to think in ways that don't feel normal until these new ways of thinking become a functional part of my mental environment. During this process of integration, I may find the rational part of my mind in one way or another arguing for knowing what's going to happen next. I resolve that when I find myself in the process of either thinking, assuming, or believing that I know, I will gently refocus my thoughts on my new understandings about the nature of the market and trading. What I know now is every trader contributes to the overall behavior patterns of the market, and therefore everyone who trades is a market variable that has the potential to confirm or invalidate any pattern and any signal. What's that?
That's huge.
Believing this makes it easy for me to think my signal as simply an edge where there's a higher probability of one thing happening over another. Do you guys need me to stop?
No, but you know, if you could raise your mic up a little bit, you're hitting the papers, hitting it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, some papers hitting it. Thanks.
Okay. As a result, I no longer place any particular significance on each edge that presents itself. Each day it becomes easier and easier for me to put less significance on each edge, because I now believe at the very core of my being that I don't need to know what's going to happen next to make consistent money. I just need to keep my mind focused on the probabilities. Therefore, I am always asking myself, what's probable, what's possible, how probable is it, and how much is it going to cost me to find out? Meaning, what does the market have to look like, sound like, or feel like to tell me this trade isn't working in the time frame I trade in? I know now that every market moment is truly unique regardless of how similar it may look or feel to something I've already experienced. Therefore, every time I find myself connecting what is happening now in the market with something that is already in my mind, I will actively disconnect the two, my past and the present moment, and refocus my thoughts on the fact that anything can happen. All I need to know is A, is the market conforming to my definition of an edge? B, what is the risk of finding out if the trade is going to work? And C, can I accept the risk? If the answer to questions A and C is yes, and if I have a plan for taking profits, then I resolve to enter the trade without reservation or hesitation. I know now that I am not responsible for what the market does or doesn't do, nor am I responsible for predicting what the market will or won't do. What I am responsible for is making sure I'm in the most conducive state of mind to be able to objectively perceive what is possible from the market's perspective and behave in a way that is consistent with my objective of making consistent money. Therefore, I resolve to pay attention to the quality of my state of mind by asking myself, am I in the best state of mind to be objective and trade without the susceptibility to making an error? If not, then I resolve not to take the trade or scale back in a manner that corresponds, or I resolve not to trade or to scale back in a manner that corresponds with my diminished capacity. Each day I'm getting better and better at making these assessments about myself because I know that mistakes exist in my life to point the way to success. I was not born with a definition of what it means to make a mistake. Children do not have a concept of what it means to make a mistake until they're taught. These concepts are learned, and more often than not, they're learned in painful ways. It is natural to avoid pain, and therefore natural for me to avoid taking responsibility for anything I've learned to define as a mistake. However, there's a problem here. Mistakes point the way to success, fulfillment, and satisfaction. Contained within each misstep is the insight I need to find my way to that success, fulfillment, and satisfaction. If I continually avoid making the connection between my perception of information, the actions I take as a result, then I will likely stay in a cycle of emotional pain and dissatisfaction, wondering why the world seems to conspire against me. I resolve that it is now time for me to reverse any cycle of pain and dissatisfaction by accepting my results as a true indication of my level of development. My goal is to make myself into a consistently successful trader. The process of doing so has several steps, but most importantly, Jake, it has a first step. And that first step has to be consistent with my true level of development. Where I am right now, not where I would like to be or assume I am, based on what I would rather not face about myself. To find that most important first step, I have to be willing to stop beating myself up. I have to be willing to truly accept that I don't need to be perfect, but at the same time acknowledge that every outcome is a perfect reflection of my level of development. I resolve and give myself permission not to have to prove anything to anybody, especially with my trading. I just need to give myself permission to learn. I willingly and wholeheartedly give myself that permission now, knowing that by definition anything I need to learn does not yet exist inside of me. Otherwise, I wouldn't need to learn it, which means that I am not yet the person I'm about to become. The consistently successful trader I can imagine myself to be is a future projection of myself. I will grow into that future projection step by step, accepting my results along the way, not as mistakes, but simply indicating what I need to learn to get to where I want to be. And with that, guys, we're done. What?
What should we do with the tape?
With what tape?
Mars, is it?
The what? Oh, we didn't listen to the tape. Oh, you know, I forgot all the... Yeah, do it at home. Yeah, okay.
Anything
Yeah.
special?
No, just listen to it, and then do the techniques that are in the book. The techniques. Remember the techniques that are in the book? Here.
Is this
Page.
Is slide to about half hour as well?
Yeah, they're all about 28 minutes. On page 3 and 4. No, 4 and 5 of section 5. Page 4 and 5 of section 5. Page 4 and 5 of section 5.
So numbers 1 through 4?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, numbers 1 through 4.
Repeat, okay.
That's
Repeat
that's
plus
what. Yeah,
number
that's how you use the tape.
Okay.
Okay.
That's how you do it.
That's how you use the tape. Were those techniques that I gave you for that? Okay, Jake. See you, buddy. Okay, I'll see ya. Okay.
Take care, Jake.
Yeah. See you guys. Good luck. Okay.
Okay, any other questions?
Mark, you mentioned Fibonacci.
Fibonacci. Yeah.
What about, you mentioned something else you used, ABC?
Well, that's yeah. I wish we'd have had more time, because I planned on actually demonstrating these patterns to you. But they're really tough to demonstrate this way. It really is. You really have to see them, because they're there all the time. But yet, until you train your eyes to actually pick them out, they can be right in front of you. Even me, I had to go through a process of several weeks, if not months, of just drawing highs and lows, and connecting them until I saw these patterns pop up all the time. Now, these patterns I did not find myself. I don't even know if they were developed by a friend of mine, but I learned them from a friend of mine by the name of Larry Pesavento. And he's written about 5 or 6 books on Fibonacci relationships. Although I used to use Fibonacci relationships almost from the time I started trading back in the late 70s. Because they've been around for a long time. But this AB equals CD, I don't know who actually developed that. But basically what you're going to find is this. What? GAN, you think? Oh, is that a GAN thing? Okay.
GAN 50% rule. Known as GAN 50% rule.
Yeah, that's a 50% retracement rule, though. I'm talking about what you have is any high and low in any time frame. It doesn't matter. Any high and low in any time frame. So I have a market that's coming down to make a low. I get in, and then it did this. Okay, I got this. I'm starting here. This would be my A. Doesn't matter. Pick any high or low. This becomes a high, and I know that because the market started to go down further. Now, what you need is for the market, this swing right here, this B swing, to be, it can be really a 0.318, a 50%, a 618, or a 786, but mostly what you're going to get are 0.618. So, and what I mean by this is that if you measure the point from here to here, from this low to this high, the market retraces 61.8% of this distance, okay? In fact, I'm gonna do it. Here, let me do it here, because it's not really. I'm gonna do it big, that way. Okay. Now. This is A, this is B. Now when the market starts to do this right here, I take this line, this distance right here, A and B, and my software will allow me to click on this line and it'll clone it. The exact line at the exact angle. And then I put this line right here. And this becomes D. Now the market hasn't done that yet. And I can watch the market and how it trades around this line, if at all. And so what I'm saying is that I will sell D. And D will be a 127, 127% of BC. A, B, C, D, and then AB equals CD. The AB line equals the CD line, you sell at D. Especially if D in a lower time frame comes in at a point that's a Fibonacci relationship from a higher time frame. But the best way, just get one of Larry's books. Just go to Trader's library or something, and he's got like 7 books on it. But you can get Fibonacci relationships and patterns for stock traders.
Right.
I think that's probably the one that, and all this is explained. Go ahead.
Just don't read it once.
Yeah.
One time.
Well, what you really have to do is you have to start picking out the patterns. You have to just start drawing the highs and lows and seeing how these patterns work.
It didn't all sink in the first time.
No, okay. Yeah, I've been working with Fibonacci relationships for like 20 years. So go ahead, John.
Friday night we discussed, we were talking about fear, how we narrow our focus to concentrate on the most.
It causes us to, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And within that first page, you were writing up, down, higher lows, lower bottoms.
Right.
And you said, when we get to Sunday, I'll show you how to stay in these trades and fight that off. Was that taking size off?
Yeah. Oh, if that's what you meant. Yeah, that's just how to scale out. That's all. That's what I meant.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all I meant. Was just how to scale out of trades like that. If you're in them on the right side of the market.
Correct.
Yeah. Not like the guy we were examining. Yeah. Okay. If that's it, guys, we can go. This can be it. This is going to be a wrap. Thanks a lot for coming.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.